I'm loving entering this new phase of life. Just this, isn't this the best? Because we've done our work, we've done our duty, we've raised kids. Some of us have had jobs. We've done the house. We've got it. To me, this feels like this is our time now. This is really our time. And when I said to you earlier, I'm working on this and that, that's because before that, I was always too busy to recognize that, you need to work on this mindset or that mindset. So that's the first thing I just want to recognize, is just like, isn't this an exciting time for us women right now? Isn't it? And just, I suppose I just want to say, because I was almost 50 when I changed, complete direction and complete, how I'm making money. I don't want to be one of these corny, like, oh, just go for your dreams and just do it. I don't want to say that, but I do want to say, believe in what you have, that you have something that other people need. That's, so many people say, well, what have I got? What would I make money out of? Who's going to pay me for that? And I think it's just recognizing that thing, that everyone has something that someone needs or needs help with. And yeah, just pursuing that. I think just going for that.
Welcome to the Boomer Woman's Podcast. I'm your host, Agnes Knowles. Boomer. Some people don't like the term, but I think, like many other words, it's all in how you say it. My umbrella business is Boom with a Bang, and I think we should keep that in mind as much as possible. We Boomer women don't have a lot of role models as we traverse this chapter, so the goal of this podcast is to introduce you to guests who might incentivize, encourage, teach you to embrace your wisdom, our wisdom. With this incarnation of the Boomer Woman's Podcast, I'm interviewing people who have a message of interest for our demographic. If you want to hear about or learn about something specific, let me know and I'll find someone who understands us to talk about it. There's a contact page at boomwithabang.com. If you want to be a guest on podcast or know someone who would be a great guest, message me. Finally, this show is all about conversation. We women know its value, we know how to do it, and we must perpetuate the art form. So let's get started with today's show. Some of my peers talk about bucket lists. Things you want to do before you die. Two things that are high on that list are, 1, travel, and 2, creating a small business. Combine the two, and in my world, that's called a digital nomad. My guest today has lived several variations on that theme, and she's younger than us, with 2 kids in tow. I'm going to let Liz tell her own story because it seems to have many twists and turns, but there are several reasons why you should listen in. First of all, she's funny and the stories are great. And second, her kids are grown now, so she and her husband are full-time location independent and create an income while they're at it. You may want to take notes. Liz Deacle, welcome to the Boomer Woman's Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Agnes. I'm delighted to be with you today.
Well, we haven't even started and we've had a couple of good chuckles, so this should be good. Liz, I know the basics. You're a Brit. You moved your family to New Zealand 14 years ago. And then in 2017, the 4 of you up sticks and backpacked around the world for a year.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Well, it was, we were living in New Zealand. First of all, we moved to New Zealand from the UK. And when we got to New Zealand, I decided to homeschool my children. So we were already in a position where we didn't have to worry about, taking time off schools and things like that, because a lot of people say, how on earth did you travel the world? How did you get them out of school? So that's the first thing you need to know. I was homeschooling my kids, which was great. It was absolutely, I say it was great. It was, there's a lot of tears and things like that on the whole, it was great.
Whose tears?
Oh, always mine, always mine. Mainly in the toilet, just Don't come in. Yeah, it was that was a whole different journey. That was one of those things that, again, it was something that I'd always wanted to do, was homeschool my kids. And I couldn't do it in the UK because we couldn't afford to go down to one wage. And if I'm honest with you, when at that time when we were living in the UK, homeschooling was considered a bit weird. You know, it was a bit only like, you know, extreme people do homeschooling. And I could never quite get my head around that. But yeah, it wasn't a choice that I had when I was in the UK because of the financial side. And then when we moved to New Zealand, we were in a really lucky position that Brian's wage was just enough to cover me being able to stay at home. And I thought, I met a German lady who lived down the road. She was a vet and she was homeschooling. And my daughter was having horse riding lessons from her. And I was talking to her about it. And she's like, well, why don't you just do it? And I said, oh, no, I'm not a teacher. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to. And she said, just do it for a term and see how it goes. And so I said, oh, okay, then. So I did it for a term, and that term turned into 10 years. So that's the first thing you need to know, is that we were homeschooling. So yeah, they got to an age, Agnes, where it was, we'd always wanted to travel the world with our kids, me and Brian, my husband. And they were 16 and 13. And we were on this campsite. We'd gone on holiday to this campsite, and we were sitting there under the stars one night, and we started talking, as you do, about, you know, oh, wouldn't it be great if this is all we did? You know, if we just imagine if we had a life that we could just travel and just, you know, just be with the kids, and we were getting paid for it, that would be even better. And, you know, I'm sure everyone has those conversations. And all of a sudden we just said, are we ever going to do it? You know, are we ever going to do this thing that we dream about doing? And it was one of those moments where it was just, well, are we? And then we said, not unless we make it happen. So we'd sat and we put our heads together and we said, realistically, how much would we need? You know, how much would we need to travel the world? And we did all these sums, and we were like, you know, if we did it all on a really tight budget, we could probably do it on like 100 New Zealand dollars a day, which is about 70 US dollars a day. So we did it, and we worked out how much that would be for a year. And I think it came to about $40,000. Well, at the time, Brian had a plumbing business with a partner, and he was really unhappy in that plumbing business. He was working 60 hours a week. He was getting good money, but he was just unhappy. We never really saw him. We just saw him at the weekend. Again, it's one of those things that I'm sure many people experience. It was just, you know, when it just sort of hits you and you think, what are we doing it for? You know, what are we doing here? So we just sort of said, how about you sell your business, your part of the business, and we take the money and we just do what we've always wanted to do and travel the world. And it was like, yeah, but what about our retirement? And we're like, yeah, but let's not think about that now. Hey, let's just do what we want to do. And was okay. So it's sort of like the ball started rolling. And from there, it was like, there was no going back. It was just, we're going to sell the business, we're going to take the money, and we're going to take the kids around the world for a year. And that's what we did. That's what we did.
Well, you and Brian traveled pre-kids, didn't you?
We traveled a lot pre-kids. Yeah. We had, like I was telling you before we started recording, we worked in Canada for 6 months, you know, all over Europe. We're big travelers. And it was, like I say, it was always something when the kids were born, you know, when people say, well, you better put that to one side now because you won't be going anywhere now you've got kids. And we were always, you know, we're going to prove people wrong. We're going to do it. We're still going to do it. And they were right in the sense that money and life gets in the way and you don't do as much as you want to do. But yeah, it was just that realization when they got to that age, and it was just, are we or aren't we? Decide now. If you're not going to do it, then stop talking about it. And if you are going to do it, make it happen. And we decided to make it happen.
You mentioned the kids your son was 16, was he?
Yes.
And your daughter was 13.
Yeah.
Was there any pushback, like especially from like the 16-year-old about just heading out into the wild blue yonder?
Do you know what? There wasn't. And I think between you and me, Agnes, this is why I think there wasn't any pushback, because they were homeschooled by me, who ruled with an iron fist. I think they thought, hang on a minute. So we're going around the world for a year. You're not going to be making us sit down at the table anymore and doing maths every day. we're free. This is going to be like a holiday. So no, they didn't have any pushback. The first thing my son said to me was, he just said, so does this mean they won't, we'll be able to do what we want in the day? There won't be any lessons? And I was like, yeah, it does mean that, because there aren't going to be any. We're going to learn by life. It was, I went all in. I was like, if we're going to do this, there's no way I'm setting aside time in the day to teach you your grammar. We're going to learn from life. We're going to do the thing that everyone. So they were thrilled. They were well on board.
Just listening to you and watching you, ruled with an iron fist just does not seem congruous with the person I'm looking at.
I know, when I said that, I thought, I hope that didn't come out the wrong way, but ruled with an iron fist to me means strict. And yeah, I was strict because I was scared. Basically, I was scared of getting it wrong, and I was scared of failing them with their education. So the way I did that was to make sure that I was covering all bases, and they just did their lessons for 4 hours a day. They did their lessons, and yeah, that's how we did it. So when we went around the world and they found out they weren't going to be doing those lessons, they welcomed it with open arms.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. If you don't mind me asking the financial question, the four of you traveled on $70 a day. Mm-hmm. I'm single. I want you to tell me how to travel on even $35 a day. I won't even ask for a quarter. I'll ask for half of that. How did you do that?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. And we did that mainly by couch. So it was when you travel, it's the accommodation that take up the bulk of your budget, isn't it? By the way, that $70 did flights. So flights are all covered we rented our house out while we were away, and the money that was left over after we'd paid the mortgage every month was like something like about, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000. We used that money to pay flights around the world and things like that. Okay. So the $70 a day is just to live. It's accommodation, it's food, it's sightseeing, it's getting buses around. So that's what the $70 a day costs. And yeah, we did that from something called couch surfing, which I'm happy to go into, and also house sitting, and another thing called servers, which is similar to couch surfing, but it's a little bit more. It's for I don't want to say older people, because it's not, but the people that are in servers are more like our age. They want to get to know the people, rather than couch surfing is just giving you a bed for the night, and they're just travelers themselves. But so yeah, those three things combined. Agnes, we went around the whole of Japan for a month and didn't spend 1 cent on accommodation in Japan. So that's how we did it.
Okay, so couch surfing, like we all know what couch surfing is. You're in a stranger's house with kids. or you're for people. My couch will not hold all four of you. I'm sorry. I need you to expand on couch surfing.
So couch surfing it's a bit of a silly name, really, because throughout the whole time we were away for a year, we didn't actually, my son did, he had to sleep on one couch, but we didn't sleep on one couch. So couch surfing is set up by travelers. When we were doing it, it was free to join. It was a free service, but now I think they charge $100 a year to be in that, be part of the couch surfing community, which is still an absolute bargain. But when we did it, it was free. So the idea is couch surfing is made up of travelers like me and you that are happy to just help other travelers out when they're traveling. And it's a huge, huge website. You can go in and you can say, okay, I'm coming to Victoria in Canada and I am looking for a family who will host another family, or I'm looking for a single lady who will host me. I'm a single lady. And, and you can find it to the finest details. You can say, like, I'm a non-smoker. I love animals, I don't love animals. You can, it's literally, it's an incredible service. It's got a bit of I don't want to say bad reputation, but when people say couch surfing, they imagine dossing down on someone's couch. Like you're turning up, it's all druggy and everyone's just there smoking joints with an old dirty mattress in the middle of the floor,
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I had my children believe that for a long time, that that's what they were going to. But the reality, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. It was just beautiful families, beautiful couples, people who were just willing to just give you their spare room for 2 or 3 nights, sometimes longer. I mean, we stayed in Japan with one family for 5 nights. And in return, I mean, you get to know these people, you swap stories, you have dinner. You as the guest makes this is what I always do anyway, and I made sure that we always did it, and I would recommend that anyone else always does it. You say, I would like to cook you a meal on the second night that you're there. Please, can we cook you dinner? And be your, not slave. What's the word? When you're be your be. I can't think of the word, but
I'm okay with slave.
I will be your slave for the night. My children will be your slave for the night. They'll carry your dinner to your anyway. So yeah, we made dinner, and yeah, it's just that reciprocal thing of just meeting people and just sharing stories and helping people out. So that's what we did. We went around the world doing that. And at first, the very first place we did it actually was in America. We were going over to see Brian's brother in Florida, and then we hired a car and drove from Florida to upstate New York. And on the way, we stopped in Charleston. And the very first night, that's the very first time we ever did it. And we couch surfed with a gorgeous lady there that just opened her beautiful, honestly, Agnes, she had this beautiful house in Charleston, and it was overlooking like this reeds, like this I don't want to say like a swampy sort of reed, but I'm making it sound horrible, but it was beautiful. And she had a hammock on the deck, and it was like overlooking these reeds, and it was just like walking into something that you see in a film, and she had 2 spare rooms, and she just said, there you go, there's your room. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. It's just wonderful. And that was the generosity of the people around the world that opened their homes to us.
So are the hosts actually, I don't know what the word is. You're going to write a note saying, find a better word than slave. And I'm going to write a better word, a note saying, find a better word than, like, do they provide credentials or any sort of recommend?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they've got reviews. They've got.
Oh, good.
Yes, yeah. So you can't just be anyone, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, and just say, "Oh yeah, come and stay with me," because that might be a bit dodgy. But so yeah, you always look at the reviews and yeah, just read who they and they usually put a big bio up of themselves. I mean, I know anyone can put a bio up of themselves, but it's not hard to do research on someone, is it? Once you've got who they are, you can go through the reviews and even go from the reviews of the reviews of the reviews. If you really want to, you can really delve in to see. Okay. But I mean, we were traveling as a family of 4, which I think it felt safe. I don't know how it would feel to do it as a single person. I can't speak for that. I can only speak for a family, and we always felt safe. And yeah, I can't believe that people just open their homes to a family of 4, and not just a family of 4. Like, my teenagers are big, and they take up a lot of space. My son's feet are huge, and it's like, so in essence, it was like offering us a place to stay for 4 adults. Just made me realize how kind people are around the world, just how wonderful and welcoming people are, and just it was great, absolutely fabulous.
So inquiring minds need to know. Apparently, I'm supposed to ask you what happened to your daughter in Italy.
About no, because if I tell you this story, you're never going to go couch surfing, and I don't want to put you off.
Well, don't put it in your talking note points then.
Okay, I'll go on then, Agnes. You've twisted my arm. I'll tell you. Okay, I will tell you this story, but you just promise that you won't take this and think, oh, that's it, I'm never going couch surfing. So we would, because this was it was a one-off. Everyone else apart from this was really, really great and fantastic. But this one time was a little bit weird. So we wanted to stay in Florence. It was the middle of summer. As you know, Italy is just packed in the summer. There's nowhere to stay. Everywhere is heaving. It's expensive. you're visiting in the height of the season, and we wanted to go in the middle of the summer. So, okay, we're going to go couch surfing. And maybe people had gone on holiday or whatever, I don't know, but there weren't many people around that were offering couch surfing in Florence at that time, apart from this one chap. And he said, he had lots and lots of reviews. He'd been a couch surfing host for looked like many, many years. Had mostly great reviews. There were some in there that were a little bit dodgy, sort of, like this was a bit of a weird experience. But I just thought, no, that's fine. If you've got over 1,000 reviews and 30 or 40 of them are dodgy, then let's just take it as a whole that this is going to be a good experience. So I applied for this couch surfing, and I said, look, we're a family of 4. Can we come? And normally when you apply for a couch surfing, for someone to host you, it's very casual. They'll just say, oh, look, we've checked out your profile. We'd love to have you. We're around at that time. We've got a couple of spare rooms. You're welcome to stay with us. And that's sort of like all that happens until maybe the day before. And then you say, where shall we meet you? And would you like us to bring anything? But as soon as I applied for this couch surf in Florence, the guy said, yep, okay, I'm happy to have you. There are a few things that I'll need to know, he said. And, first of all, I need to know what sort of food, if you were going to cook a meal for me, what sort of food would you cook? And so I thought, well, that's a bit weird, asking me that months before. I don't know, so I said, oh, we would cook you. I said spaghetti carbonara. I think looking back, that wasn't probably the wisest idea when I'm staying in Italy. But spaghetti carbonara, the reason we always chose that is because it's so easy and the kids can make it, and it's just, it's a nice dish, it's a nice, easy dish. And yeah, so that was the first question. So that came back and that passed. And then he said, okay. And he asked a few more questions about Brian and what he did for a living and, what we were doing. Fair enough. We're coming to stay in your house. I understand that you want to know these questions. And then he said to me, I'd like to know your body measurements. I'd like to know you and your family's body measurements.
Measuring you for caskets or something.
Yes. Well, exactly. I've got a 16-year-old son here who watches horror films constantly. He's like, I'm not going there. He wants to know so he can make bodysuits. He's going to bury us in the garden. And I was like,
no, he's just going to add weights and sink you into. Yeah. Oh no, that's Venice. You're safe.
Yeah. And I said, oh, don't be silly. Stop being so dramatic. I said, don't be silly. That's not what it is at all. He probably just wants to know because of, the how much space we're going to take up in his flat. Because he'd already told me that he had a top floor apartment in Venice, a 3 or 4 bedroomed apartment on a top floor. Anyway, so I said, okay, well, I'm 5'4" and my husband's 5'8" and my son's 10'11". And so he said, okay, that's fine. I'm particularly interested in the younger member of your party. How many inches long is she? And I said to Brian, why does he want to know this? And Brian said, well, just ask him. Why does he want to know? So I emailed him back and I said, is there a reason you want to know this? And he said, yes, because I'm arranging bed sizes. So I thought, okay, fair enough. Like, maybe he's trying to just decide, if he can fit into a single bed or 2 single beds in one room or, okay, all right. So she is 5'2" or however tall she was. Okay, he said, I look forward to seeing you in a month's time. So we get closer to the month and we're all excited because, well, the kids weren't, they were dreading it. They were convinced we were going to be murdered. But I was trying to keep things positive. I was like, oh, it's going to be really great. Florence is beautiful. We're going to go and see this and see that and stay with this guy, make him spaghetti carbonara. Anyway, we turn up at the house and he's standing on top of the balcony waiting for us, leaning over the top of the balcony, looking down into our car, like when we pulled up. And he's shouting, Deacle family, I am here. And we look up and he looks like Einstein. He's got this like masses of white, wiry hair. And to make things worse, he was shirtless. So he was stood at the top of his bus with no top on, with his wild hair, shouting down to my children and me, Decals, I'm waiting for you. And I looked at Tessa and she just took hold of Brian's hand and she said, oh, Daddy, please, can we just go to a hotel? And I'm like, I said, no, this is going to be good. This is going to be brilliant. This is going to be such So we went up the stairs and we climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his top floor, and he welcomed us at the door, and he opened the door. And the first thing I noticed apart from the fact that he stood there half naked, the first thing I noticed is behind him, there's just masses of, like you see these programs, like these hoarding programs where they have like masses of millions of empty tin cans and papers and all this stuff. And it was just like packed in his hallway. And I thought, wow, this is a lot of stuff. So we had to
This is why he needed body measurements to clear a space.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And so I thought, God, this is a tight space. So I just followed him through, and he's like throwing his arms in the air. He was ever so nice, throwing his arms in, welcome to my home, welcome. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And he said, I'll show you to your room. So in the hallway is one of those beds that they have in hospitals, where you can wheel it around, like, one of those on casters.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was there in the hallway with a curtain pulled around. I'm making it sound really awful. With a curtain pulled around it in the hallway next to all the cans and the papers. And he said, this is Sonny's bed. And I said, oh, that's lovely, Sonny, isn't it? You've got your own bed, and, you're not on a couch, and you're in the hallway next to the cat food tins. And I said, just put your bag on there. It's fine. Because again, we're all together, so we feel safe. This is an adventure. I'm thinking, this is great. And he said, so there's Sonny's bed in the hallway. And he said, and I'll show Liz and Brian their room. And he showed us our room, and there was a double bed in there, and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of other stuff piled around. But that's fine, because that's fine. It's free. It's Florence. We're together. It's dry. We're okay. And so he said, and now Tessa's room. He said, I'll show you where Tessa will be sleeping. By now, she's literally just clinging hold of Brian's hand for dear life. And he takes us through the kitchen and through a set of double doors, like French doors that go onto the balcony where he would been earlier leaning over and shouting at us. He said, follow me. He said, so we go through the kitchen and we go through the French doors. And I'm thinking, maybe this is just like a cut through to another bedroom that he's got, that... Anyway, we go out and we turn left and we go past all these like flower pots and things. At the end of the deck is a long rabbit hutch. A long rabbit hutch. With a roof. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. With a roof, and on top of the roof was a few pots of geraniums. And in the side of the rabbit hutch, so imagine a long rabbit hutch that was like all panelled in, but at the end of the rabbit hutch there was a window with a little curtain.
A coffin with a window.
A coffin, there you go, a coffin with a little out to the side. And it was just long enough. And he said, just have a look in there. He said, and this is where Tessa can sleep. And he was 100% serious. And I was so intrigued. I said, oh, let's have this. This looks very cozy. I said, let me have a look. When you were a little girl and you used to make those little sleep out things, and you'd make it all pretty with cushions. And I don't know, there's something really secure about just getting into your own little space. And I said, oh, this is nice, Tess. And she looked at me and she said, Mummy, I don't want to sleep in there. Can we just go? And we just said, look, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to let Tessa sleep in with us tonight. And he said, oh, look, she doesn't want to sleep she does not want to sleep in this. And we said, no. She gets a little bit claustrophobic and she just wants to be with her mum and dad. And he was like, okay, no problem. And he wasn't bothered. But he was seriously, that is what he had put her, and we got a great photo. I'm going to send you this photo after we speak on this call. I'm going to send you the photo, because I said to Tess, just climb in it, Tess. I said, and let me take your photo so I can put it on Facebook. So she was such a good sport. She climbed in, and there's a picture of her looking out of this little window at the side of the rabbit hutch. But yeah, that was the story of
she crying when she was looking out the window.
No, she was such a good sport. She just like, when they're bordering on hysteria, where they're like laughing, but it could really go easily the other way, where it was just, no, she came in with us that for those 3 nights she came in with us. But yeah, it was just, God, I just couldn't believe it. A rabbit hutch.
Oh dear. Okay. Well, I'll make a few notes when we're done about the couch surfing. Oh dear. Okay. So at some point in time, you became a travel blogger. So I'm going to be killing myself over this all the way through. Okay. So you became a travel blogger. Where and when did that happen? Like, when did you decide?
I tried to be a travel blogger before we left. So about 3 months before we left, I thought, oh, well, we're going to go and travel the world, and I've got a computer, so I'll be a travel blogger. And I said to Brian, oh, we won't need to worry about money because I'll just do travel blogging because I've seen other people do it and they can make money out of it, so I'll be able to do it. And I just failed miserably at travel blogging when we were traveling because all I wanted to do was write funny stories. And I don't know if I don't know if you know about how people make money out of travel blogging, but how they make money out of travel blogging is basically writing about travel tips. And I wasn't doing that, or I certainly wasn't writing things that were attractive to other people.
Like coffins on the deck.
Yes, exactly. Why wouldn't you want to do that? So I learned the hard way. In fact, I didn't learn the hard way because I got some good stuff out of it. I spent the year writing stories, which obviously I turned into a book later on, but I spent the year writing stories, but stories don't make you money. You know, like I say, writing about hotels and putting affiliate links in makes you money, but I didn't do with that. I didn't know how to do that, and I wasn't interested in doing that. So when we came home from that trip is when I got serious about, okay, if you really want to do this, like you said earlier, become location independent and be a digital nomad as such, if you really want to do that, then you need to learn how to do proper travel blogging. And I took the next 3 or 4 years teaching myself all about that. And now I have got a travel blog that offers very good normal advice to normal people that don't do things like I do. So yes.
Okay, so you did become a travel blogger.
Yeah.
And then you're following up with YouTube, Pinterest, podcasting, drop shipping happened in there somewhere. You see, I did do a little bit of research.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Agnes.
So what was sort of what's the calendar, what happened when?
Well, it all happened when we were just about to come home. We were in Thailand, me and Brian, you know, we had about 3 weeks left to go of the year-long trip. And we were in Thailand, and anyone who's ever been to Chiang Mai in Thailand will know that Chiang Mai it's full of what you call digital nomads. It's full of people who are just from all over the world that come to Thailand to work online, because Chiang Mai is a beautiful city. It's got super fast internet. It's cheap. It's got fantastic food. It's got brilliant cafes. So why not come to Thailand and work online and build your business? So wherever we went, whenever we went to cafes, we would look around and see these people working online. And we were like, wouldn't it be great if that's what we did? You know, so that was when we actually decided, look, let's look into let's look into any way whatsoever. We did so much research and we're like, how do people make money online? Well, there's lots of ways people do that. They make it from drop shipping, as you said. And we knew nothing about that. I mean, you've just been witness. I don't even know how to record a Zoom call on my computer. So I knew nothing, and I still know nothing. Brian does that about the technical side of it. So that was quite challenging, just learning how people build a website and sell things online. But we did it. We just said, you know, like, we'll go back to New Zealand. Brian can carry on doing his plumbing on the side. He can bring in the wage enough to cover the mortgage. But in the meantime, I'm going to learn all about travel writing, making money online, selling things online, what people are willing to pay for online. And we spent the next 3 years learning all about that. I studied, like, as you say, Pinterest marketing and, you know, podcasting and all these things, that just little bits of money that would come in, you know, like, oh, okay, well, our podcast makes us $100 a month. But our drop shipping is now making us $600 a month. So we're nearly at our $1,000 a month we need to cover our mortgage. And it just built up like that, just lots of little things that we kept trying that added into the basket of income that was coming in. And I don't know, well, I do know how, but all of a sudden, 4 years later, and we were making the same money that Brian was making when he was working full time as a plumber. And we'd done it. I want to say I don't know how we did it, but I do know how we did it. We just worked, we just kept on learning and trying and applying and determined. And our last thing that we did was we started making YouTube videos. Someone said to me on Facebook once, "Oh, you should do videos, Liz. You know, you're really natural in front of the camera." And I would never, I'd done that before. And I said to Brian, we already had a podcast, and I said to Brian, "Do you think we should just put the camera on and just video us in New Zealand, just talking about New Zealand?" And he's like, "Yeah, just give it a go." And the first couple of times I was so nervous, and it was just so nerve-wracking. And then gradually we built this audience. We were just talking about our life in New Zealand. That's all we were doing, was just talking about life in New Zealand. And then gradually we started building this audience on YouTube. And we noticed that people kept asking us about what it's like to live in New Zealand, because they were thinking of moving to New Zealand. So this went on for about a year, and, you know, I would answer their emails and I would send them messages. And I said to Brian, how about we start a community, like a paid for community of people who are moving to New Zealand, where we have all these resources, you know, because when we moved to New Zealand, there was no such thing as this. And so we did, and people paid for it. And that was another income that was coming to us. And yeah, it was just, I'm just so grateful, you know, that it feels like you're helping, well, you are helping people, but at the same time getting paid for it. And just, it's, yeah, I can't actually believe I'm talking about myself when I talk to you about this, because it sounds like someone else's life, but it isn't. It's what we worked for and where we are now. And yeah, I'm just still very humbled by the whole thing that I'm able to do that.
The one thing I am hearing too, and I want to point it out, is the fact that, you know, like you hear about overnight successes and all the rest of it, but, you know, you did your due diligence. I'm sure you tried a few things that didn't work. This has taken you several years to get to a place where the major wage earner in your family, his income is now replaced.
Yeah.
So it does take time.
Yeah.
So listeners, start now.
Well, yeah, start now, and just little and often, you know, just those small steps of, because I think that's the other thing, Agnes, is you just think, oh, I'll do it and I'll be earning $5,000 a month, and, you know, straight away, and that'll cover this and that'll cover that. But it isn't. It's just those little tiny bits coming in, and you've just got to keep going. I think, you know, just, it was never a quick win. That was a mistake I made when I very first started. I thought, oh, this will be easy, you know, everyone else is doing it, so I'll do it. And it's just like, oh no, you know, if only I knew that, just how tricky it is. And just, yeah, you like you say, just keep at it.
It's the old story, but it takes 5-10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need to know numbers, but last year you and Brian traveled around Europe and Thailand for 6 months. Were you still on a tight budget, or are you financially comfortable enough now to be able to spend more than $70 a day?
I think once a budgeter, always a budgeter. I don't know. I think that, yeah, it's probably stems back to when, you know, my childhood growing up, we were always on a tight budget. My family would never had much money. So I don't think, even if, I don't know, I think even if you were making like lots of money, I would never be the sort of person that was like, oh yeah, let's just go and blow it all on a 5-star hotel. What the trip that you're talking about was what we did last year, when we bought a vintage car in the UK, and we drove it down to Greece. I think my biggest achievement in my whole life, that I can honestly say, when I sat with my kids, was we were able to afford to fly our children out from New Zealand to Athens, pick them up in Athens, take them over to one of the islands, and stay in it was nothing fancy, but it was a beautiful little, you know, Greek Airbnb sort of thing, you know. And like I say, it was nothing fancy. It was like €40 a night, but we were all together. We'd paid for that. We were in Greece, and I just sat there, and I remember thinking, we were sitting at a Greek taverna one night, and I remember thinking, we've done it. This is it. You know, they're here. They're with us. We're paying for it. It's just, we've done it. So yeah, it was just, it was a great feeling. And I don't mind talking numbers. And I know you said you don't need to know numbers, but whenever I'm listening to a podcast, I'm like, please tell us numbers, please tell us, but our goal was always to make 10,000 New Zealand dollars a month. That covers everything for us. Like, that covers our mortgage, our living, our expenses, our travel. And we are making that. That's what we're making. So that is enough for us to think, yep, we can travel. In saying that, when we went last year, we spent 6 weeks house sitting in Italy, in a beautiful town in Tuscany overlooking the Mediterranean. We were looking after a cat for 6 weeks, and that was completely free. Didn't pay a penny because we were house sitting. So I will always have that, just that bargain. I just don't think there's any better way to travel than to just think staying in someone's beautiful home, meeting these lovely people, and it's costing you nothing. So
I should think too that if you're in the community in somebody's home, you're meeting the locals as well, as opposed to staying in some grand hotel where the only people you meet are, perhaps a porter or, your server or something, it's,
yeah.
Well, that sounds great. Can I ask you a personal question?
You can ask me whatever you like.
I've had teenagers. How did the four of you get along for that year? It's, teenagers are not always sweetness and light.
No, they're not. They're not. How did we get along? We just, I don't know if it's because, like, with homeschooling them, I spent all day with them every day, these kids. And, when I talked earlier about crying, here's a story. When you're homeschooling, people say to you, whatever you do, when you're the teacher, when you're the mum or the dad that's teaching them, you keep it separate. You keep your emotions separate. This was what I was taught through my homeschooling journey. Like, keep your emotions separate. Just always make them feel secure. The kids feel secure, which I do get that. Always make them feel, don't ever let them see that, you're struggling or whatever. I was the complete opposite of that, not out of choice, just because I couldn't hide my emotions with them. So they saw everything, they saw how I was feeling. I told them how I was feeling, how I was scared to fail them and their education, and why we were doing certain things. And, that I would talk to them about everything, that was happening. So we've always had a very strong communication, me and the kids. It's always been, nothing has ever been off limits. It's just that, we've always had that. So maybe that foundation, that strong foundation that we went forward with, like, I remember sitting outside a train station in Sri Lanka, literally just my head in my hands, and I was like shaking because we were going to this house couch surfing place, and I was scared. It was like, we're in Sri Lanka, we don't speak the language. The town that we were in was very, very poor and very, I just thought, you get that moment of like, what am I doing? Why have I brought my family? Why are we here? And I was scared. And the kids were like, they just put their hands on my shoulders and they were like, it's going to be okay. It'll be an adventure, and just like that support of, just that two-way support. I just always felt like we were always a unit. I never felt like it was them and us. It just felt like we were always in a unit. We always talked about every decision that we made, where we were going to be staying, what we were going to be eating. So I think I'm just very, very, very lucky with my kids, that I've got kids that are just easygoing. And in saying that, let me just tell you a story in saying that, because I don't want your listeners to think, oh, Miss Perfect, because there's nothing worse, is there? But look, I'll tell you this story. We were with our Japanese, and he was such a gentleman. I mean, the Japanese people are delightful. They're just so calm and so gracious and so beautiful. And this gentleman had taken us to a museum, and everything in Japan is so quiet. Have you been to Japan?
No, I haven't.
No, it's a very quiet country. It's very respectful. It's just lovely. And on top of that, not only are we in this quietest country in the world and everyone's respectful, but we're now going to a museum, which is extra, extra quiet and respectful. And we were walking along and I was trying, I mean, the kids were just bored senseless. They were like, why are we at a museum? And I said, no, you just listen and learn, because this is very, very interesting for you at 13 to be going around this museum. And Tessa, my daughter, was behind me, and it was deathly quiet. And all of a sudden, I just heard her say, shut up, you P-R-I.
Say it, it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, shut up, you prick. And she said it so loud, she was shouting at her brother, and it seemed to me like the whole of Japan just stopped, turned to me and my children, and looked at me with utter, like, what is going on here? I just, when you just want the world to open up and swallow you up, and you're like, I cannot believe my daughter has just sworn. Not only that, she shouted it in the middle of a museum in Japan in front of our host. There were times when I said, and I just took her by hand and said, we're going to be talking about this later. And it was just as it was. Actually, she still talks about that now. She said, you took my phone off me for a whole month. And I said, yes, I did. I did take your phone off you for a whole That was a punishment for, shouting and swearing and doing this stuff. But I wanted to share that story because I don't want you to sit there and think, oh, it was just all so perfect and everything was just rosy, because it wasn't. There were times when things like that happened. So
I think it's okay, though, for kids to understand that their parents are only human.
Yeah.
And when they see you going through that whole gamut of life and your reaction to it, it also makes it okay for them to be nervous or laugh out loud or cry or not necessarily swear obscenities in a Japanese museum. But you dealt with it, whatever. They do understand there's consequences. Life also has that. So
I just think communication is that's the only thing I keep coming back to, and it almost seems too simple. When people say about raising kids and just or whatever, and your teenagers and traveling with them, and I just think, I try and think of a really clever answer or a good answer, but the answer that I always come back to is just communication, just talking all the time to them, just all the time, just talking about everything. And I think you just hit the nail on the head there. It's just letting them know that it's okay, that nothing is hidden. It's just, I wasn't brought up like that. Were you? Were you brought up like that?
Oh, hell no.
No, I mean it.
So, yeah. I did try to bring up my kids similarly, with varying degrees of success, I'm sure. But I'm still close to my kids, and they're all in their late 30s now, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've hinted at the book a couple of times. Tell us about the book.
The book is a collection of those stories that I've just been telling you about. It's just, I wrote them all down, and I would put them on, I would when I was supposed to be being a travel blogger and instead was writing about things like rabbit hutches, people that followed me on Facebook would say, you should turn this into a book, you should tell these stories in a book. And so 2 years ago, that is just what I did. I just thought, I do want to share this. I do want to turn it into a book. So I put them all together, and it is called the Travel Bog Diaries, and turned it into a book.
Okay, so we need to just clarify that it's the travel bog, not blog. There's no L in that word. Do you want to explain your Anglicism there, please?
The reason it's called Travel Bog, well, for a start, so as I just told you, I'm going to be a travel blogger. And so I thought, right, I'm going to have a travel blog. And then once we started traveling and these stories started happening, and I just used to go and hide myself away in the loo and just to have some space away from, there's the other thing, you see, there's the other thing that you said about success. Just go in the toilet a lot of the time, wherever you go. Just get away from your teenagers. But I would go in the loo and I would just sit there and I'd just think of all these things that had happened and how I was going to write about them. And you will know this because you told me earlier that your mum was from Manchester. So you will know that the word bog in Northern England means toilet. So if you say, I'm going to go to the bog, it means I'm going to the loo. So it was kind of a play on the whole, I didn't make it as a travel blogger, but I did make it as a travel bogger.
Now, in your talking points, you mentioned that your editor told you to take out very vital parts of the narrative that you thought were hilarious, but she thought were too much for other women. Now, I have no concept of too much. So what did you take out?
Oh, so the book is the way I've written the book is the stories of what's happened, but I do like little asides of what I'm really thinking. So that, like you see sometimes when they're, written in italics, and it was what I was really thinking. And I didn't hold back on what I was really thinking. And we all, we all have those thoughts sometimes that you think, oh, I could just murder you right now. It's just, obviously you're not going to say that to your kids, but it's what's going through your head, And I wrote those sort of things down. And she said to me, I don't think it's a good idea for you to be saying that you want to kill your kids. And I was like, yeah, but I did. And she said, yeah, but you can't admit to that. And funny enough, it was, and you might be able to speak for this, being in Canada, but she said the British audience might find that funny, but the Americans won't. And I really struggled with that because I've got a lot of people, Americans and Canadians in my audience, and they're like, no, we get it. We love it. But I think what she was trying to say to me in her defense was, if you want to appeal to a wide audience, then take those things out, because they're going to think you're a psycho. They're going to think that you're a crazy woman, just take them out. And I just couldn't. And I said, so if I don't, then I'm just going to please that smaller audience, but at least that smaller audience will
love you.
The true audience. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, it was something that I'm an insecure person anyway. But so to have someone turn around to me and say, that's not good, that needs to come out. It was a battle for a long time with myself of like, do I do it to please, or do I do it to remain true to myself? And I chose to remain true to myself.
Oh, okay. So it does have all those side thoughts.
It does,
bubbles.
yeah.
Oh, good. No, that's fair. And I think your whole personality would suggest that, yeah, like how long do you have to hold their head underwater? You don't mean it. It's just an experiment.
Exactly.
Oh dear. I've had a similar experience, in the past, where somebody said, oh my God, don't say that in public.
Yeah.
But it's like, where does your mind go that that's what you think? But mind you, I didn't use words like kill. No. Okay. Anything you do differently?
Anything with the trip or the book, or
anything since 2017? Anything
I do differently? No.
I mean, besides your choice of accommodation in Italy, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes. I'd still do that because, again, it's a story and it's experience. But anything I'd do differently? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything differently. I would just maybe not give myself such a hard time. That whole self-doubt thing that we have. But that's something I'm working on personally. That's just something I need to carry on. That's an ongoing thing. But just that's, even just talking to you earlier when you said, tell me what you do now, and you're making money and online, and even just saying that out loud still seems to me a little bit show-offy, a little bit. And I've got to get, I'm trying to work on that, no, you've worked for it. It's fine. But there is something.
What I was going to say is it's fine insofar as one of the reasons you're on this podcast is not because you're hilarious and you come from next door to where my mom lived. It's the fact that you are doing it. You are living proof that it can be done. So you have to claim it so other people can look at you and say, oh my God, if she can do it, maybe I can do it too. Yeah. So if you don't claim it, then, how many people are going to miss out on their dream?
Thank you for saying that. That's so true. And that's why I always try and remain true and keep it real, because like I say, I look at people and think, how are they doing? But if you look at me and just think, well, she can do it. She's a nutter and she can do it. She doesn't know how to record a Zoom call. So, it gives it, like you say, it's hopefully that inspiration, and just that is, so thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, and at the risk of insulting you, a relatively normal person.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, you don't have this extensive business background. You weren't CEO of some company at age 25. You're a mom with kids and family, and you've, done a few things the hard way, I'm sure. And yet now you're earning a pretty decent salary that allows you to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So,
And again, it's the same with the travel. People will reach out and just say about traveling and, how do you do it? It's just like, you just do this. It's just, you just do that. It's just, it isn't. And before I did that, I used to look out and think, you need to have special skills to be able to do that. And you just don't. So
you do have to learn a few things, but that's okay. What haven't I asked you about your adventures in your life and life as a digital nomad? Is there anything I haven't asked you?
I think you've asked me some brilliant questions. I think you've done a great job. I just feel like all I've done is talk. So
that's the point. It's a conversation, and
yeah.
The stage is yours. The microphone is yours. Okay, our listeners are older than you. Some of them are single. They're a pretty game lot. Any advice for them if they decide to travel on a shoestring and or pursue that goal of digital nomad?
First of all, I would just like to say that I'm loving entering this new phase of life. Just this, isn't this the best? Because we've done our work, we've done our duty. We've raised kids, some of us have had jobs, we've done the house, we've got it. To me, this feels like this is our time now. This is really our time. And when I said to you earlier, I'm working on this and that's because before that I was always too busy to recognize that you need to work on this mindset or that mindset. So that's the first thing I just want to recognize, is just like, isn't this an exciting time for us women right now? Isn't it? And just, I suppose I just want to say, because I was almost 50 when I changed, complete direction and complete, how I'm making money. I don't want to be one of these corny, like, oh, just go for your dreams and just do it. I don't want to say that, but I do want to say, believe in what you have, that you have something that other people need. That's, so many people say, well, what have I got? What would I make money out of? Who's going to pay me for that? I'm just going to share a really quick story, and then I promise I will let you go. But there's a lady on my email list, and she's a size 18, and she used to be a yoga teacher, and she just said to me, what have I got? And I said, so hang on a minute, you're a size 18 and you know yoga, yeah? And she said, yeah. I said, please start a size 8, a plus size yoga class. Please do that. And she's like, well, and I said, do you know how many women are put off going to yoga because they are scared they're going to get there and everyone's going to be stick thin and super flexible? Can you imagine how wonderful it would be, Agnes, to just go to a class where everyone was just like, not this perfectly size 8 svelte flexible. How wonderful that would feel. I said to this lady, I said, you have got such a gift, please share that. And I think it's just recognizing that thing, that everyone has something that someone needs or needs help with. And yeah, just pursuing that, I think, just going for that. And
I had almost that exact same conversation with a woman 10 years ago. So that's interesting. Yeah. And I do want to say that I'm going to take this last 2 minutes of what you've just said and email it to you, so that when you have doubts, you listen to yourself.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, one more personal question.
Yeah.
Favorite New Zealand wine, red and white?
The name or the so
all
it's
of it.
Pinot Noir.
Anything. Okay.
Yeah, always a New Zealand Pinot Noir and red Pinot Noir, New Zealand. I also love Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc, New Zealand. Okay. Especially their fizzy version. That's really nice. Yeah, it's fizzy Oyster Bay, Sauvignon Blanc, and it's like, honestly, you can't taste the difference between that and champagne. In fact, I think it's nicer, and it's only $18. So whenever we want a celebration, we're always like, let's go and get some Oyster Bay. It just is, it's lovely.
Okay.
But I'm a red girl.
Yeah, I am too. But if you need a bottle of champagne-like wine, the Oyster Bay sounds fabulous.
Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc is delicious. It's really lovely.
And any Pinot Noir?
I think it's called Hunterway or something like that. Do you know what? I'm going to hands up and I'll tell you this now. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I just drink anything that tastes nice. I'm not, and when people say, I'm just like, no, just give me whatever. It's fine as long as it tastes nice.
Next time you're in Canada, come on over.
Okay, I will.
You're like my mini-me. I can't believe this. Oh, dear. Okay, where do we find you on the World Wide Web?
So I'm on, my name, lizdeacle.com. You can go there. That's a website that I have. I also have a podcast that I host with my husband, Brian, every week, and that's called It's a Drama. And my book is called The Travel Bog Diaries. So you can get that by going to thetravelbogdiaries.com.
Okay, that's great. I was just going to mention to you that your it'sadrama.com.
Yes.
Oh, you have Liz Deacle as well? Just a minute.
I do.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have another monitor over here. I am on It's a Drama, and that seems to be home to many, many things, blog, podcast.
That's right. Well, the It's a Drama is my travel blog that I make the money on. So that's the one we were talking about. So
okay, that's great. Okay, so basically you're on social also. You're everywhere on social.
Try to be, yes. Yeah. I'm not great on social, I must admit, but yeah.
That's great. Okay, website link will be in the show notes. All of the links will be on your page at our website. Listeners, if you have thoughts on today's show, please talk to us. Leave comments where you're listening, like on Apple Podcasts, or if you're listening at the Boomer Woman's Podcast at boomwithabang.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and talk to us there. Leave stars and reviews where you can. They help us grow. Share this episode. Liz herself is worth sharing, but her story is also a great incentive with tips to try some variation of budget travel and or creating an online business. I've mentioned it before, but I have a page on my website with ideas for earning extra money. Many of them are online. I'll put that link at the bottom under Liz's links. Liz Deacle, thank you for being my guest on podcast today.
Thank you so much, Agnes. I've absolutely loved this. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
I've had so much fun. Have a great rest of the week.
And you too. Bye.
Bye.